look at that, we've got color. I mean, it's sickly browns and greens and reds, but it's better than that bleak black and white we had in the first chapter. At least the exposure has some positive side effects, is what I'm saying. To start off, we're limping along. We just got stabbed and thrown into the water by an explosion, so that makes sense. But how the game achieves this sort of wobbling walk is a little odd. And now we have a telepathic link with Mesner, I guess? That doesn't bode well. So, the wobbling. It's pretty much just a shifting translation across the player's x-axis. Move forward and backward and you start sliding. Stand still, it does nothing. If you start strafing, however, there's no more wobbling. Hayden still looks to be in pain, but he's much more balanced now. I just find it funny that the game has this one-time only effect that you can actually circumvent.
Marlowe 1. Oh, shit.
Go ahead. We have you on the emergency channel.
I've been infected. The shot you gave me, it's not working.
Calm down. Is Mesner dead?
Maybe. I detonated the charges. Are you listening to me? The booster didn't work. I need evac.
I'm putting the hazmat team together right now. I want you to carry on. Rendezvous with our sleeper agent, Yargo Menzik. He's got an observation post on top of the Lazarian Port Authority. He'll have more boosters for the infection. Use them. It'll hold it off until we can get you out of there. Just follow the coastline north.
I've lost all my gear.
Improvise. You were always good at that.
The Glaive from Dark Sector survives into Warframe. It was introduced as early as Update 7.9, a little more than a month into the open beta phase. On the surface, it's a short-range bladed melee weapon that deals a decent amount of damage, but it's one of the few weapons that can be thrown, and for a while it was the only one. A thrown glaive bounces around a few times and returns like a boomerang, slashing any enemy it hits along the way. Best of all, you can still shoot your equipped gun after the glaive has been thrown. Now, the description for the glaive says it dates back to the time of the first Tenno. Safe bet is that directly refers to Hayden and the events of Dark Sector. Maybe. Back in Dark Sector, the glaive is the only melee weapon Hayden gets. But melee is not exactly what you use it for. Not at all. The game starts you off with no ammo in this chapter. That's to force you to get used to the glaive, and to drive the point home that you can actually get through a lot of the game with just the glaive. To stop beating around the bush, the glaive is a really, really powerful weapon. Pinpoint accurate, for starters. Even on brutal difficulty, for these basic enemies, 2 body shots or a headshot is enough to kill them. Of course, when you miss, you get punished by the glaive's return time, but it's not that long, and the sheer power more than makes up for it. And this is just the glaive's base damage. As you might imagine, it gets even stronger later on. When an enemy staggers and glows red, that's an opportunity to use a melee finisher. The finisher is kind of useful, I guess. It instantly takes down an enemy that might have had plenty more health to go, but through most of the game, any melee at all is just too much of a risk. Now that we're infected, we no longer get extra ammo from enemy guns. We can pick them up and use them for a bit, either 2 clips worth of ammo or until the magnetic governors detonate once enough time has passed. Like so. Until we have weapons and ammo of our own, it's best to rely on the Glaive. Speaking of, it's worth noting that the Glaive has a limited range and a set number of ricochets. If it bounces off 2 surfaces or enemies, it'll return immediately. But it also can't quite make it across the length of this entire bar. So that's its other limitation besides the return time. Rubles are money in this game. You don't earn rubles in any organic way, so you have to be constantly on the lookout for pickups. And by this point, having played the game 3 or 4 times, I've gotten real paranoid about missing pickups. Ammo goes the same way as rubles. It doesn't drop from anything. You just have to find caches of it in various boxes. This is where we can start running into shortage problems. Also, if you think you can cheat the weapon governors by dropping it, that doesn't work. Once the timer starts, it's only a matter of time before the weapon detonates, whether it's in your hands or not. As you're going through quiet areas without any combat, your only incentive for exploration is finding rubles and ammo. After coming up short in previous playthroughs, that's incentive enough. But you've also got about a 40-60 chance of finding absolutely nothing when you stray off the beaten path. In short, exploration is sometimes rewarded, but not always. Chances are you'll get into this next fight with some pistol ammo. That reveals one of the Glaive's other strengths. You can use your sidearm after the Glaive has been thrown. You might still choose to rely on the Glaive alone to conserve ammo, but the pistol is useful for when enemies are too far away or peeking out from behind cover. Another thing about the finisher is that you don't get hit very often mid-animation, sort of. So if you're in the heat of battle, rushing in for a finisher might be worth the risk if it gives you a breather and you can regenerate health. We now have our first evolution power, the Glaive Steel. Also, that metallic covering on Hayden's arm was originally just on his hand. Now it's climbed up a bit and covering up the burns on his forearm.
You don't understand. This change is inevitable.
The steel lets you lock onto faraway objects and use the Glaive throw to pick them up. That's about it. Guns, ammo, rubles, anything that could normally be picked up in person, you can now grab at range with the Glaive. The sort of tutorial for the steel ability is to grab a brick of C4. C4 isn't used anywhere except these first 2 chapters, I think. After this, it's gone forever. But, whatever, I guess this particular locked door needed opening. After all, it doesn't look like there's any other way forward in this grim environment. Check one more time. Yeah, no, don't think there was any other way forward. Some easy-to-miss rubles, and more chair physics. The steel is also used to grab objects that are blatantly out of reach, which brings us to upgrades. Weapon upgrade modules and silver briefcases scattered throughout the game. There are 37 total, and it's really, really hard to find them all. So now things ramp up a bit. Closed quarters, a trooper about to barge in. But as long as we've got weapons at the ready, we should be fine, right? Well then, we dealt damage, but since he was in the middle of a unique animation, he wasn't staggered. Oh well, that shotgun really hurt, let's take it for ourselves. On second thought, that trooper's at the end of a ridiculously long hallway, so the shotgun's probably a waste of time. Okay, just gotta run up for the finisher, and... Ah. That's what happens when you die in this game. Good to know. Let's try again, and this time let's not play around. Headshot that guy, then head for the door. Well, where did you come from? That's for appearing out of nowhere for the sake of your scripted event, jerk. Okay, not charging up like last time, but just gonna use all of my pistol ammo and finish him off with the glaive. Is he dead? Not sure, so let's take the shotgun. Alright, he's dead. Pretty sure. Now it's time to take a look in all the side rooms for resources. In retrospect, this encounter feels like it's designed to force the player to work without cover. That empty room, that long hallway, it seems to say, here, let's see what you can do when you can't glue yourself to a protective wall. And, you know, I can get behind that element of design, even if I died a couple times to it. So now we're getting mobbed by Lazarian troopers in hazmat suits. Functionally the same as the regular troopers, but much easier to see. This position we're in is kind of a double-edged sword. Perfect protection, but not a whole lot of great angles for attack once they move away from that central opening. Well, crap. Looks like Mesner survived the explosion too. So what's his deal now? He wanted us infected, mission accomplished. So now what? Is he trying to capture us alive? Take us out so we can't get in the way of his plans? Are we somehow still useful to him dead, you know, since all the minions who shoot first and shoot second? And for that matter, wasn't he our guy at first? I guess there's no time for questions because that's a Colossus and this is not a good room for fighting a Colossus. The explicit on-screen tutorial is teaching you how to dodge, but there's a ton of other things that this sequence is teaching you as well. Like, hey, there's destructible cover. Sometimes it has weird specialized rules where you can't vault over even when it looks like you should be able to vault over. But man, look at that destruction! And also, notice how the Lazarian troopers are completely ignoring Hayden and focusing on the Colossus. Yeah, turns out the two factions don't like each other very much in this game, and you can take advantage of the chaos. This whole chapter has been something of a tutorial, really, both for the basics and for slightly advanced concepts. Here's how you use a glaive, but also here's how to handle a zero ammo situation using only the glaive. If you pick up an enemy gun, you learn about the magnetic governors. Okay, here's how the glaive and pistol go together. Here's your first evolution power, because those happen. Here's a situation where you don't have any cover. And then this whole fight and all its concepts. Of course, a lot of that's probably old hat if you're a third-person shooter veteran. But it's interesting to see a level of controlled design that isn't 100% on-screen tutorials. And the glaive does take a bit to get used to as gimmicks go. It's fortunate that it just does so much damage. Oh, you want me to actually talk about the Colossus Fight? Well, what is there to say? You can't hurt it, so all you can do is dodge and dodge until the situation changes. It's basically a rampaging set piece with a timer. Though what is kind of interesting and notable is that the warehouse sometimes breaks in weird ways. It's sort of organic and sort of not, because it's clearly already been pre-broken into static pieces, so it's just a matter of which get destroyed by the Colossus first. Thus, you can end up with some weird floating combinations. And that's it, the Colossus gets bored and leaves. All that's left is to clean up the remaining Lazarian troopers, because you don't want to go through all that and then die because the stragglers remembered you were there. We can't leave just yet, though. This chapter has one other weapon upgrade, and it's in a really tricky spot. one that, if you've played the game before and didn't get it, it's gonna make you go, oh, come on, really? So that's the two basic kind of collectibles in this game. Some are in obvious locations on the critical path, and most are in just kind of really crafty places. Fortunately, I'll be getting all 37 of them in this playthrough. Some games would have you shoot buttons and switches. This game makes you lock on with the Glaive Steel power. And finally we get a checkpoint. Not that it hugely matters, because this is the end of the chapter. Time to look for any remaining ammo and move on. And one last tutorial. Sometimes the way forward is blocked by a trap door with a padlock instead of just a regular door, just to change things up. We're on our way to basic competency.